and welcome to the third episode of the Chel Stars podcast. We got another fun one here. We got obviously the same crew as usual. We got myself, Kyle, Mikey, and Corey. So today we're going to kind of go over, obviously we had quite the busy Friday as we saw. Other than that, just some minor little details throughout the week, but we'll have a little bit of a shorter podcast today as it's somewhat slowed down, I would say, throughout the week. But we'll kind of begin. I mean, I'll probably pass it over to Kyle. We'll start with our big blockbuster of a trade. And also just to warn any of you listeners, if you do hear a slight bit of echo, it is because me and Mikey are in the same room and we had a bit of audio difficulties. So we'll try our best to keep that at a minimal. All right, I'll pass it over to Kyle.
Hey guys, how's it going? Super stoked to be back for episode number 3. We'll get into a couple different topics we have prepared. I'll let Corey and Mikey introduce themselves though before we get too far into it. Go for it, Corey.
Hello guys, like Hal said, happy to be back, and let's talk some hockey.
What's going on, guys? Mikey here. Glad to be back for episode 3. Like Max was saying, we do have a bit of a shorter podcast, but there was a massive blockbuster trade, which we'll spend most of our time talking about today. So, Kyle, whenever you're ready, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, big blockbuster trade happened a couple days ago. We have Oliver Bjorkstrand going to Seattle and a 3rd and a 4th round pick going back to Columbus.
I knew that was coming. I mean, a fleece, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, definitely. No, the big one's definitely the Matt Tkachuk trade. Matt Tkachuk going to Florida. Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, and a 1st round pick and a prospect going back towards Calgary. So we'll get into that. Probably a huge deep dive into that. Right off the bat, Corey, who do you think won that trade?
Oh, you're calling my name out.
You're putting you on the spot.
Rick, man, that's I'm gonna say it's gonna take. We're not gonna be able to predict right now. Okay, if I had a guess, I'll say Calgary. But
Calgary, because they got more value back.
I think no. I think they made the most out of the situation they were in.
Once they had their hands completely tied, they had no leverage, which is the weirdest thing to see in a sport that traditionally the team that holds your rights has incredible amount of leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So, I mean, time will obviously tell. I think face value. Let's go over the pieces in the trade just so everyone knows.
For sure. So, like I said, Matt Tkachuk going to Florida with a conditional 4th round pick. I don't know what the exact conditions are, but probably nothing.
I mean, I can explain it, but it's really...
Yeah,
it's
go off.
Oh, okay, wow. Well, I'll read it exactly from our website here. So it kind of comes down to also the 1st round pick that Calgary is getting. So that 1st round pick that Calgary is getting is a 2025 conditional 1st round pick. If it turns out to be a lottery pick, so a top 10 pick, then Florida keeps it, and then Calgary gets the 2026 1st round pick of Florida's, no matter what. But if it's past the top 10, then it's Calgary's to keep. That being said, we go over to the 4th round pick that Florida's getting. So say that 2025 1st round pick is Calgary's to keep. They also get the 4th round that year of Florida's. Stay with me. And if that pick of Calgary's goes to 2026, say it is a lottery for Florida in 2025, then they get the 4th round of that ensuing year. So in a sense, they're kind of together, 1st and 4th. So you understand? Yeah.
So they're just making the years match if
essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So confusing to understand at first.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a confusing one. Mikey, what did you think about the trade?
Honestly, looking at it, it was crazy because I think it happened around our time at like 10 p.m. and I instantly sent you guys the Instagram post about it happening. I think Calgary, Calgary won that one just again for value wise. You have Huberto, who's probably a top 10 player in the league. I don't know how he's going to do in Calgary, considering they did trade Kachuk for him and they got rid of Goudreau, which were two-star players he could have, maybe eventually worked a power play with if he came onto that team with a different trade. But I think adding Uyghur, who's a pretty good defenseman, he was a great defenseman on Florida, and Huberto put up 115 points this season. I just don't know how he's going to play with some of the players in Calgary. It'll be interesting. And I also heard that Calgary might try to flip him, so you never know what will happen. But essentially, I'm saying Calgary won that one just off of value alone. It's like four kind of pieces for one guy type of thing. So
Yeah, it was a crazy trade. So let's get into the contract extension too. So Matt Tkachuk, signing trade, 8-year deal at $9.5 million each year. And then when we look at the pieces moving back to Calgary, Jonathan Huberdeau has 1 year remaining on his contract at $5.9 million. And then Mackenzie Weegar, 1 year left at $3.25 million. Now, both those guys are UFAs at the end of the year, so that kind of puts Calgary in a weird position where they have to decide this season if they're going to try to keep those guys on and pay them, because they're both probably going to be $10 million players, or if they're going to try to flip them at the deadline and get some more assets back. So it's really do or die time for Calgary in my mind, where they need to decide within the next 6 months if they're doing a rebuild or if they're making a strong push.
Yeah, it really comes down to how their season goes, because obviously if they think they have enough to compete for the cup, and they keep them but they walk, then it's a massive L, in my opinion, for them. And it will make this trade look like a landslide for Florida. Although, if they go off to a rocky start and they decide to flip both of these pieces, I'm just thinking about how much value Huberdeau can get at $5.9 million for a contender. Same with Weegar, $3.25 mil for a top, a guy that can play top end minutes. They can get a lot of value again and can really kick off their rebuild if they decide to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Or do you think this makes Tampa a better team or a worse team going into next season? Because they've won the President's Trophy last year, and they're in a position to possibly repeat.
Sorry, do I think this makes Tampa?
Oh, Tampa? Sorry, Florida. Good God.
I was laughing at that one too. I just have to mute my mic.
How does this affect?
How does this affect LeBron's legacy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, you take two pieces off Florida, so they're effectively leaving a hole in defense. Who's there? They got a hole in their defense that Uyghur was filling. So, I don't know. I think they have a strong season. I think Matt Tkachuk brings a lot different skills than Huberdeau. I think they have a piece in Tkachuk that's, I don't know. I look at this trade, I look at the MO, and I think it starts with Calgary. Like, they're obviously in a win now kind of mode, and Goudreau chooses not to re-sign. And then I don't know if that changes Tkachuk's decision, but it seems like immediately after that, Tkachuk says he's not going to re-sign.
I think so, saying that Tkachuk wasn't going to re-sign if Goudreau didn't.
Sorry?
I think there were some rumors saying that Tkachuk wasn't going to re-sign if Goudreau didn't.
Yeah. So that might have been the case then. So this trade kind of happens because Calgary has to move Tkachuk, and Florida, I don't know if they were pursuing Tkachuk at all, but maybe they saw an opportunity. Looking at it from Florida's end, okay, they're looking, we need to re-sign these two players. Huberdeau is probably a big priority at 5'9". What was he? 5'9". Like he's set for what?
Yeah,
easy 10,
5.9.
right? Easy. No, for his next contract, like that's an easy 10 long term. Uyghur, I don't know, like at least 5, right? Like he had a pretty good year. 6, 7, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the defense market; they're getting paid. So you look at what Sergachev signed for, $8.5 million. I mean, yeah,
and I'd say Uyghur is a better defenseman than.
Oh yeah, I think most people would agree with that too. So
yeah.
You can argue he would immediately look at that contract and be like, "Hey, I want that too."
Absolutely, and he'd get it, and he's probably actually bringing more value than 8.5 if he was to sign for around that number. I'd say he's giving the same value as guys who are making $10 million.
Right.
Go for it.
So they get a winger that's 5 years younger in Tkachuk, and they lock him up long term. And I guess looking at Florida, who else is? I don't know. I guess next year Reinhardt, Montour, Forsling.
What I saw from Florida as I was kind of researching a little bit was that this not only gives them good like a good replacement for Huberdeau, but like great cap flexibility going forward, because instead of paying Huberdeau $10 million and paying Uyghur $9 million next year, now they have Tkachuk locked up. The only thing is it really leaves their defense in a weak position, and they're gonna have a hard time filling that role, which will probably make them a weaker team down the stretch, like the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can start to fill some holes on defense with younger players that are on team-friendly deals, then that's what they need to do.
How do you guys think these two players, like Huberdeau and Tkachuk, are going to perform with, like we were mentioning earlier, like the different line mates? Because obviously Huberdeau and Barkov on the power play were electric. They weren't on like an actual line together, I believe, during the regular season. They did like a 1-2 tandem like McDavid and Draisaitl did over in Edmonton until it came to the playoffs. Then, if they needed to be on a line together, they were put on a line together. How do you think Tkachuk's going to fit in with like Barkov and kind of the other forwards they got going there?
I see them doing the same thing where Kachuk's playing with Bennett, but I could also see them putting him on the first line with Barkov because I don't think Matthew Tkachuk is going to drive play the same way that Huberdeau was driving play. He's not going to be the one that's breaking the puck in. He's going to be good in the corners and in front of the net and in the low to high slot, but I don't think he's gonna be moving the puck the same as Huberdeau was. So that's why they split them up in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And Huberdeau and Calgary, how do you think he's gonna pair up with I don't even know who their starting center would be. Like Backlund maybe? Like who else do they have, Ricky?
Lindholm.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you're forgetting Lindholm, who is also the last couple seasons been in Selke consideration, just like Barkov. So who knows? Could be a very similar scenario for him. Who knows what the rest of their forward group looks like? Because we'll get to that. But I mean, they currently don't have many forwards signed. They still have to sign Mangiapane. So for him, I mean, could be a similar scenario. I would say Tkachuk, like we said, a little bit slightly different, but he'll have some pretty good playmakers on the team to set him up, that's for sure.
I could see Huberdeau having a good year alongside Nazem Kadri as their starting center.
Yeah, I mean, that is potentially what could happen, yeah.
That would be crazy, but I doubt Kadri would want to go to Calgary. We'll see. We'll see.
Maybe with what's going on. I mean, right now he could be thinking, I could be playing with Huberdeau alongside of me. It's intriguing.
For the next 6 months until he gets traded.
Well, yeah. Maybe he'll sign a 1-year deal.
This is, I think Calgary, for Calgary, it's kind of like, it looks bad. Your 2 stars don't want to play there. And now they've acquired a couple more stars that are at UFAs. So I think they really need to, I don't know if they'll re-sign both. They really need to re-sign at least one. Also looking at Lucic's contract comes up at the end of this year. So that's going to open up 5+ for them. So I'll give them some more cash to play around with. Because, I mean, they've locked into Markstrom. They should probably try and build a good team if you're going to, sign Markstrom to a long-term deal. So,
I mean, the Flames blue line's looking a little bit better with the Uyghur addition for sure. Myself and Max were talking earlier, and they have Rasmus Anderson, they have Uyghur, they have Tanev,
Hannafin.
they have Hannafin, yeah, exactly. So,
Zadorov.
I mean, their blue lines, their blue line's not looking bad. It's just a matter of are they going to score as many goals as they did when Tkachuk and Gaudreau were on the team. That's the thing. Like, are they going to score as many goals as they did last season?
But you know what? Well, yes. But, with a good D and a good goaltending, like, typically that's what you kind of want heading into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Unless you're...
For a Daryl Sutter team, I think he's looking at that, and really, I mean, he's got his D-core locked in. I mean, a few question marks on term for them, but he got a stud goaltender, got some pretty good two-way forwards, so I mean, they can definitely still compete. So it'll be a big question mark for what they can perform on the ice, though, and what they can do with, re-signing them.
And they get that first. So they get that first for Tkachuk. So I think, and that's why we'll have to wait and see. But, like, I think they got a pretty good haul for, as long as they can, I think Huberdeau, as long as you either re-sign is probably ideal. And then if you have a bad year, flip for something. Don't just let him walk. So I think if they can do something with Huberdeau, then they'll win for sure. And Tkachuk now has a lot of pressure to perform on Florida. And Florida has a lot of pressure to perform in general, seeing as they don't have a first-round pick for the next 3 years, I think. So, and they haven't really shown a lot of success in the playoffs yet. So now Florida has a lot of pressure.
Yeah, good points. With their next 3 first-round picks all being out of the door, 2 of them being conditionals, but I mean, we already know those are basically already gone. So they really went all in last year, and that didn't really help them. They won 1 series, but got swept the next one. So,
and I'm kind of comparing these 2 teams. They've got both. They signed free agent goalies, big term, but Bobrovsky, they got 10 mil on this guy.
Yeah.
Go to Markstrom, same age, a year younger, for 6 mil. Like, big mistake with the Bobrovsky deal, because that hampers them. That's $4 mil compared to, like, that's actually a pretty decent. Looking at kind of the price point now, if Markstrom can perform better than, or his playoff performance at least, like, that's a good deal for Markstrom for what we've seen him be capable of.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the market value for goalies nowadays. You see a lot of them. Jack Campbell, Kemper just signed for 5 and 5.25. So I mean, you don't see a lot of them. I mean, a couple of years ago there was the 2 contracts, Bobrovsky and Price, that got signed for 10 mil plus. So other than that,
teams quickly realized not
those
to
were
sign
all
goalies for
mistakes.
that much.
So unfortunately, that hampers Florida big time, and there's still 4 years left on that. So. There's been a lot of rumors of them trying to get rid of that contract, but I have no idea who would take that on.
He's a full no trade clause or no move clause, right?
No move, yeah. So that's nearly impossible to get rid of.
Starting full no move, starting July 1st. Oh, never mind. Starting July 1st, 2024, it becomes a 16-team no trade.
Okay.
So, but that's still a ways away, so.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a kind of another scenario for you guys. If it was a 1-for-1 for like Tkachuk, Huberdeau type of thing, I know I mentioned that earlier too with you guys. Would you guys do the 1-for-1 rather than giving, Uyghur a first round and another prospect? Would you guys do a 1-for-1 considering Huberdeau's age, his contract, etc.?
So are you asking if we're Calgary or if we're Florida?
I
If
mean,
I
it's
was
kind of
Calgary, I would not do that deal because Huberdeau's contract's up in a season. You have no control over that situation at all. But with Matthew Tkachuk, you have several years of team control.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So
If,
from like an asset management point of view, I wouldn't do that deal if I was trading Tkachuk for Huberdeau.
we can imagine we're re-signing Huberdeau. If you want to do like a 1-for-1.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If there was a contract in place, say it was like an identical contract, 8 by 9.5, I would probably be tempted as well. But at the same time, I would probably still not do that because Huberdeau is significantly older, 5 years older.
I wouldn't do a 1-for-1. I would trade Tkachuk for Huberdeau, but I would want something more in return because of age.
Yeah, because Huberdeau's got 2, maybe 3 years left in his prime. Tkachuk has 6 or 7.
Yeah, so I mean, be interesting. I mean, so obviously with the scenario they got handed with Tkachuk wanting it out and only giving them a certain amount of teams he would sign long term, you'd think usually that would mean they get handcuffed for what they get in return, but like we said, 4 assets in return is crazy. I mean, if this was a trade that was, like Mikey said, a 1-for-1, or even Huberdeau and a first, that conditional first, and maybe that conditional gets changed to if he resigns or not. I mean, that would be, I think a lot more people would be looking at this trade like it's a lot more equal. Right now it seems like a landslide, but like we talked about already, it really depends on the future.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else you guys want to add about this topic here? I think we.
I don't know. I just want to say, like, we haven't seen a blockbuster trade like this in probably a good minute. There's obviously been some big names moved around within the last couple of seasons, but the last
all
crazy
these prospects
blockbuster
going for them. Yeah.
Yeah, the last blockbuster trade I remember was like Weber and Subban type of thing. But these are like 3 big name players that you never really see move in a trade all at once. So it kind of like blew my mind to realize what happened. But then after looking at contracts and looking at, like everybody's kind of like status and whatnot, like I feel like it was kind of the right move by Florida. But I guess we'll see how they do. I think Tkachuk can light it up there as well.
I think he will.
One thing I just want to mention, you brought up Subban and Weber, which at the time seemed like Nashville got a clear winner with Subban, Weber being the older player. But that kind of shifted, and I think a lot of people would say Montreal got the better end of that trade in the long run. So we really got to wait and see about this one that's just happened as well.
Yeah, honestly, never know what's going to happen. Huberdeau might pop off, Tkachuk might not, vice versa, or they might both pop off, and it's like an equal thing. So.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's an exciting last few weeks between the pre-draft, draft, free agency, all that jazz.
Oh yeah,
pretty fun time.
Yeah, it's been crazy off season. Like, obviously, with just this blockbuster trade, but there's been the coaching carousel of changes, free agency, and that's even then. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's not even over. There's still so much to be done with a lot of teams. Like, I don't think we're close to being done.
No, there's some teams that are in tough positions cap-wise, or just putting a competitive roster on the ice. So there'll definitely be some moves to be made heading into training camp. Sounds like a lot of teams are still looking to move some pieces and create some flexibility. I think we'll shoot it over to Mikey, get him to go over some of the signings this week.
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple bigger ones, obviously some RFAs that got signed. You have Pierre-Luc Dubois, who signed for $6 million. What do you guys think about that one?
I mean,
I don't have much to say about that one. That's just a generic kind of signing for me, like a 1-year qualifying offer. I don't think that highly of Dubois, if I'm being honest. So
Yeah, I really don't like, at least the reports that I'm getting out of there. Obviously, with him almost giving Winnipeg only one trade destination to to Montreal, possibly attending the draft. Who knows if that's true? But I mean, I don't know. He seems like he basically quit on his team in Columbus to get out of there, and it seems like he's almost doing it this year with Winnipeg. So, well, it'd be interesting to see what he does this season in Winnipeg. So, if he quits on them or actually can put up a bit of a fight, because I know they're still wanting to compete. They're not rebuilding.
Which
Yeah.
they should.
Yes, they should, yeah.
It's similar. It's pretty much a similar situation to Tkachuk, player that doesn't want to be there. Just in, I think Tkachuk's case, he wanted to leave. Like, he didn't even want to play the year. Dubois, because they have no choice, right? They either get traded or they sign the deal, right? So he's basically signing a 1-year deal and will be traded. I don't know even if he plays. I would doubt he plays the whole year.
Yeah,
He'll definitely be at the top of any kind of trade block lists
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
the TSN and Sportsnet put out. So
Yeah, I think maybe even before the season he gets moved. I don't know. I don't know if you want to bring a guy back.
Yeah, I mean, there's all the talks about him going to Montreal, and that's where he seems like he wants to go, but I don't see why they would necessarily want him right now with what they've done this offseason and what they have. Obviously, trading for Kirby Dach. You already have Nick Suzuki, so I don't think they're in a scenario to really want that right now.
No.
So I can see why he didn't get traded before this contract.
it'll be interesting to see if Montreal is willing to blow up their plan, because they obviously have a good plan in place, getting some key pieces. I wonder if they're willing to blow up their plan just to get a French player.
Well,
because they've done that in the past.
I kind of like the balls he has to want to go into the spotlight to Montreal, though. Like, I do have to say, because that's, especially being a French player, like, that's, if you don't perform, that's a tough place to be. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it'd be fun to watch. It's a team that obviously they still have a lot of work to do in their off season. It seems like Winnipeg is a lot of trade rumors coming out of there, but we can shift gears over to another player that always has ties to Dubois, going right before him in the draft and getting traded for one another. Laine getting re-signed for 4 years, and I believe it's 8.7 mil per. So, I mean, give us your thoughts, Kyle, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great signing for Columbus. Just given the fact that Johnny Gaudreau's there now, and I think those two can work together and really take that team to the next level, which means them competing for a playoff spot. Hopefully, I'm not too sure if they'll get there, just based off of some of the other signings they made, like trading away other deals that they made, like trading away Bjorkstrand, bringing Goodbranson. Kind of a wash there, like net positive, net negative, kind of evens out. So it'll be interesting to see.
I know Laine is excited to play with Gaudreau, so that's like I think the biggest piece and reason why he re-signed. So good on the management team realizing like kind of what their players want in that sense. Like obviously Gaudreau coming in there, he didn't want to just play with like no name people, right? Like him and Laine, I think could do some damage on the power play together. Then you add a center in there, and then you also have Voracek on the team as well, who's still pretty good, even though he's a little bit older. So I think they'll do decent, but time will tell. Time will tell with them.
Who's the center that's supposed to play with them?
Ooh, good question. Let me. Oh yeah, hold on.
Their center depth is trash. The only one that pops out to me, I mean, Cole Sillinger's still young, but like Roslovic is the only other center that really comes to my mind.
I would say, because he played with them a lot last year, is that Boone Jenner. I know he's a pretty big body guy, so I think he fits in well with Laine and Gaudreau. He'll be doing the gritty work for him, and I also want to
We'll
point
be
out.
dumping the puck in.
Yeah, exactly. I also want to point out behind the scenes here, me and Mike are like waving at each other when every one of the sharp points. It's very funny. I wish we had this recorded. But yeah, I'd say Boot Jenner is our candidate there.
Yeah.
They also have the Canucks legend Brendan Gaunce. Don't forget that. He's a centerman. Brendan Gaunce. Yeah, but I mean, those were two of the major RFA signings. There hasn't been really anything other than that. But hey, Columbus, I mean, looking at their team, again, with Goodbranson on their back end, who knows what's going to happen.
This Voracek contract has really screwed them up. Still $8 million a year for the next 2 years is not ideal.
Yeah, that's
for a guy that's just not producing like he was 5 years ago when he should have been making $1 million.
I mean, for a guy that last year had 6 goals as well,
oof,
it's pretty tough. I mean, 56 assists, but man, he's not so much the goal scorer.
Yeah.
Still the bit of playmaker there, but that's a tough contract to have. But speaking of contracts, we mentioned him already. Eric Goodbranson for a 4x4, which basically caused them to not be able to keep everyone around, as in Bjorkstrand had to be traded. That trade is so bad. I don't get it at all. I know Kyle was also the same boat here. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about it though, like, why wouldn't they try to move Nyquist or someone who has a less positive impact on driving play and performance in the offensive zone? Gustav Nyquist has really taken a couple of steps back the past couple of years. Bjorkstrand's held pretty steady as somebody who can play a top 6 role, definitely not a top line role, but when he's facing the other team's second, third pairing, he's very effective.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, Nyquist has 1 year left, so he's a UFA next year. They have almost identical, money wise. So 5.5 for Nyquist, 5.4 for Bjorkstrand. I don't know why. I feel like Nyquist would have gone for a 3rd and 4th, let alone Bjorkstrand.
Exactly.
That was an interesting trade, that's for sure.
They have to shed some salary. They're a player over the roster, hey?
Yeah.
Columbus?
Right now they are. I mean, they have a lot of, people, a lot of defenders. I feel like a lot of them are younger players, which will probably get sent down to the minors anyways. So I think I don't see them making much more moves, as they're pretty much done there.
Yeah. I really got to commend Seattle with the depth that they've built on the wing. Last year they were trash, but this year they're really starting to get what looks like a team.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their team and they have a loaded core of wingers. Their center depth may be questionable, very young though. But they're wingers, man, you can shuffle them around, and they're sneaky, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Like, if we are looking at their wingers, so their winger depth includes Jordan Eberle, Jaden Swartz, Burakovsky, Bjorkstrand now. Jared McCann is probably a top-line left winger as well for them. Mm-hmm. That's like 5 wingers. And then add, like, Jonas Donskoy in there to finish off their top 9. Crazy.
Yeah, it's looking pretty sneaky. I mean, their decor still a bit questionable, but
weak.
Yeah, that's for sure. They're really hoping for a rebound from Grubauer, but with that decor, I don't think it's going to help them. That's for sure.
I don't think so, no.
So, but at least their forward group is looking pretty fun. And you had forgot to mention, Corey's going to love this player, but Brandon Tanev.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantasy legend.
Fantasy legend, yeah. Does it all.
Oh, for sure. I used to have them.
I think something that we should touch on too is with all this recent young player movement, young player trades, requests, and even holdouts recently. Like, there's certainly been a shift, at least I've noticed, from maybe 10 years ago. We've always seen UFAs move, 28 to 30, 32, like around that age, which is pretty, I think, acceptable. Fans will boo them, but they've run their contract and they've moved on. But, recently it seems almost every young, talented RFA is holding out, signing right before the year often. And now we have RFAs refusing to sign. Well, Tkachuk, I guess, the only one. But even with this Dubois deal, like first Columbus, now Winnipeg, it's the shift. The power is almost becoming onto the players, and it's always been a team first league. It looks like the players are taking more of the power these days. Thoughts on that? Like, is obviously it's a player's choice to play where they want to play. Do we think this should be the case? Do we think is loyalty expected at this time? A player has a right to request a trade, don't they? What are some thoughts on this?
I definitely get what you're saying, and it's like it's hard to say, but I think a bunch of these young guys like Tkachuk and a bunch of the other RFAs, they want to win. They want a Stanley Cup, even though they're younger. I think they want to win it like now, right? That's what everybody kind of wants. And if you're stuck on a team like Winnipeg or even Columbus, for example, like how many years is that going to take before you actually reach like a final type of thing? Like, I don't think Winnipeg is doing much this season, to be honest. They haven't really made moves, in my opinion, but I think it's just that they want to play where the money is and where the contenders are, and in like a good city, like Tkachuk in Florida. I think that's like a perfect fit for a young guy like him. Like there's a lot to do there, and like living in Calgary, where like a bunch of players, honestly, I don't think really want to go to. That's my opinion.
I don't think he has an obligation to, re-sign at all.
I'm so torn on the topic because at the same time, like it's awesome when like the players have control and are able to like stand up for themselves and get what they want out of their career and out of their contracts. But at the same time, like if I was a Calgary fan, I would hate that Kachuk's like, I'm done here, no more. Like that would kind of irk me.
Yeah, even if you argue he wasn't going to re-sign if Gaudreau didn't, and I mean, if I was a Calgary fan, I would be looking at that like I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a lot of boos when he returns there, like at all. I mean, you see that a lot of times with UFAs leaving, but RFAs are a completely different talk that the NHL really hasn't seen, I would say. Like, it's, I mean, maybe something we see more in the future. I mean, obviously, at this very moment, there's a lot of RFAs still left to sign. Do I see any of them being moved? Maybe one or two, but I don't think any of them are refusing to sign. At least from what I would say.
Well, there's been quite a few holdouts and quite a few players almost getting paid for what they will do, aside from what they've done, which is what we. And obviously, once the bar is set, players want to, make where the expectation now, so it just keeps getting pushed, right? Mm-hmm. I think what I would say is, I still want to see championships and championship teams built rather than bought. And I think, yes, kind of like Kyle said, like players they don't have an obligation to play for anyone. They certainly can request, and they certainly aren't forced to sign contracts. They don't want to, but also there should be something said for building if you're the best player, building the team around you and making that team a winner rather than chasing and having, the top 5 teams you want to go to already kind of be built. And I don't think that resonates with fans as much either. Everyone likes the building of the championship and the core and all that. So I just think it's the situation can lend itself into that direction, which is not somewhere I'd like to see as a fan.
Yeah, I also don't want to. Yeah, I'd like going off of that. Like, you don't want to see too often where Tkachuk, for example, only gave a list of, I believe, 6 or 7 teams that you'd like to sign. He would sign for long term. You really don't want to see the NHL get into that because more or less you'd probably say the same teams might show up a lot of times. You think Florida, very nice place to live, no taxes and stuff like that. So, I mean, how often do you think someone will say, "Hey, I'll sign long term in Winnipeg"? But I mean, so you don't want to see the same teams being brought up because you're getting into like almost just the same teams getting all these players or all these blockbuster deals being part of the same teams, and all these teams like Arizona or someone are just kind of feeder teams.
Right. Mm-hmm. And which is a problem with many leagues.
Oh yeah.
Right. You look at soccer across the globe. You look at
I would say
even
like MLB. You got the I'm forgetting the name of them off the top of my head here, but putting me on the spot. I shouldn't have started that point, but yeah. Don't follow me for baseball news.
So Corey.
Yeah.
Do you think Matt Tkachuk is chasing a contender?
I think he's selectively. Well, I don't think Arizona's on his list. So, I think the teams he's selected are places he wants to go that also happen to be good teams. Like I don't remember the list exactly, but they were a mix of probably a nice place, a nice American city plus a good team, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then my follow-up.
And I mean, like, sorry, Kyle. And I mean, like, you got to look at teams that have like these star players that people want to play with, too. Essentially, right? The younger kids, like Tkachuk, he sees Barkov on the Panthers, and he's like, I wonder what I could do with him. Like they could be like a 1-2 combo and just put up numbers this season, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it resonates with the whole point of, I mean, a lot of these guys are almost leaving Canada, which hurts us Canadian fans. You want to see the Canadian teams do well. So, it's hard to say. I mean, you hope this doesn't continue, and at least you can, the variety can change, but you don't want teams always chasing the same contenders year to year, whatnot. And also, I do want to mention that team I was trying to name is the Oakland Athletics.
Okay.
Could not think of it for some reason.
Yeah. Corey, I know you got to take off here, but I had a follow-up question for Max and Mikey. I don't know if you want to sign off at all, Corey, or what your plan is.
I want to hear your question.
So my question is,
He's interested.
So my question is, can players trust management to make the right moves to make a contender and help build a winning team from scratch? Because a lot of the NHL front offices have showed that that's just not in their MO. They're open to signing bad contracts because they think it makes them look good short term, and it just screws them in the future. So our management teams entitled to the benefit of the doubt from their young players in order to keep them?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I kind of heard with Goudreau, like maybe it could have been like a management issue. I don't know if it was a coaching issue, maybe a management issue, which is one of the reasons why he didn't want to play for them. But it's also like, stemming back to last week, how we were talking about Vegas and what Vegas management was doing to their players. necessarily think like a star player wants to see that happen to them because they know, depending on the management team, that could happen to them out of nowhere, type of thing. You know, like if they don't win after a couple of years, they might just get rid of like a top guy for some assets, something like that. So I don't think you can really trust management in like a business sense to kind of do what's needed for the team, but at the same time, it kind of screws over the team because now people, like we were talking about last week on Vegas, like players don't even want to re-sign for them or even play for them, type of thing.
Yeah,
I think
that's good points. I'll let Corey go ahead though.
I was gonna say I think it varies. You know, I think if McDavid said he didn't want to play in Edmonton, people would, because you know they haven't done the best to build a team around him. I think most people would say that's fair. I think if you look at I think if Gaudreau said that, I would kind of question it because I think Calgary has done what they can to build a team. But I think it varies. I think there's definitely been organizations that, you know, Kyle says MO. I think there's definitely been organizations through the years. Florida was pretty standard at just kind of being a team to be a team and not really have winning mentality. I think you can look at like obviously Arizona and over the years and some other teams in the past have done this. And that comes down to ownership as well. So I think it really varies. In terms of Mike's point of how you treat the players, yeah, I think that's fair. At the end of the day, like, it is a business. So if you get traded, I think you should treat your players well, but by all means, if a trade, like, you know, it is a business, so trades happen. And look at the Raptors a couple of years ago with acquiring Kawhi Leonard, trading the fan favorite DeRozan. I mean, you got to do what you got to do as long as you treat them with dignity, and then there shouldn't be a problem.
So I was going to kind of add on to Kyle's question in a sense. Do you think a player like McDavid, any of your top players on your team, can kind of go to management and just be like, you know, they obviously see what's not working and stuff. They'd be like, hey, like, can you maybe try to get like, you know, like a better winger with me or like a better defenseman to be on the blue line? Do you think that these younger players who are like the captains and the star players kind of have the authority in the sense to kind of, you know, talk to management, not obviously like tell them what to do, but just like kind of just be like, hey, like, it'd be cool if you got so-and-so or if you got like another left wing for the team?
I think so. I think for sure, if they're a big part of that core, if there should be a plan, and if there isn't, then there's a problem. So, you know, yeah, if McDavid went to the Oilers and said, look, I'm putting out 100-plus point seasons, what are we going to do? This is my, seventh year? You know, I think that's completely fair. If the player's doing what is asked of him, management needs to fulfill that as well. And if there's too much of a disconnect, then yeah, we will see the team implode, and that's when trade. And then I think you can look at Buffalo for that as where things gone wrong, and the player that was the star player that they were going to build around is no longer there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
I'd say in Edmonton's case too, like I'm sure McDavid did go to management and was like, "Yo, you got me playing with Zach Cassian. Give me someone better." And they've added within the last year both Zach Hyman and Evander Kane into the mix, and then re-signed Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Again, not the strongest wingers, but like players that McDavid and Draisaitl can facilitate play through. So.
Yeah, you can definitely bet he was part of that conversation, and since he's, the biggest player in the NHL and such a core piece of their team, you can bet he was part of that, almost decision making. And even with getting Evander Kane, you always hear about like teams almost behind the scenes texting each other, etc. So kind of making them a stronger team and really, welcoming them in.
And if sorry, go for it, Corey.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, and if we're talking about like Edmonton specifically too, like you have to keep in mind that like the GM and the scouting team is responsible for developing a good prospect pool in order to get those good players. But when that system is falling apart, like Edmonton was good at drafting in the first round and nowhere else for the longest time, they're starting to get some like a bit more full of a prospect pool, but it's still not near the top of the league by any stretch. They just don't have the assets to trade, or if they are trading assets, it's draft picks, and that's just putting them even more behind, and they're not going to be able to maintain the same success going forward, because it's super important to get great players in the pipeline, bring them up on entry-level deals, and get rid of your 32-year-old wingers who are starting to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, strong points.
But I'll tell you what, if McDavid eventually wins with Edmonton, I think that there'll be some respect that he, carried for as long as he did on that team, and I think it'll kind of like when Ovi finally won with Washington after there may have been talks of him going elsewhere. Like, it just means a lot more,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a dream scenario. I don't see that happening in Edmonton, or in most places, right?
Okay. What if it did?
If it did, oh yeah.
But
I guess I'm just pessimistic there. But Washington, they built a nice team around Ovechkin, where they had Backstrom the entire time, and were able to supplement a lot of depth, and honestly go on a pretty lucky playoff run. The fact that Holtby turned into a pretty decent goalie for that stretch was handy as well.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
a lot of luck and a lot of skill involved, and you got to get the right mix of both at the right time.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how a lot of teams win cups nowadays. You kind of see, I mean, yeah, the right timing and how it all mixes together. Like, all these teams are so star-studded, but it really depends on everything gelling together at the right time.
And not getting injured, and
there's so many factors that go into it.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I'll probably pass it over to Mikey here, as we're pretty much, that was more or less everything that happened this week. I mean, everything up until Friday, there was nothing that really happened. I know we were talking amongst each other that, I don't know, we have no idea what we're going to talk about today. So I'm glad we still managed to get a lot out, and
I was going to say,
there's plenty to come, as we talked about. Like, there's so many UFAs, RFAs, trades to sign, teams to get under the cap. So I think it's going to be a busy August for us, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then get into other topics too that we've been kind of mulling over. Do some fantasy hockey stuff, do some other season stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all that will come with the season coming on back in like September for preseason, October for regular season. But yeah, today was definitely a good talk. I'm glad the Tkachuk trade happened, so we had a little bit more to talk about. Next week, we're hoping kind of maybe, the remaining UFAs will get signed there. Kadri, Klingberg, and the rest of them, PK Subban, maybe Louis Eriksson. But anyways, we'll be back next week. Not sure if it's going to be the same day, but we'll definitely put out an episode next week, rather with be discussing just a couple topics we have planned out in our mind, or some more trades or free agency. But we all appreciate you guys for listening and tuning in for episode 3. We always have a blast making these, so we have no problem making them every single week. So thank you guys again, and Max, play the music.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone, and take care.